Hello, it is Sarah here with Yoga for Classrooms, and I am coming to you with another myth we hear from educators. And this one is my students are too old for mindfulness. So maybe you teach at a middle school or a high school, and you wonder if your students will just think this is silly or refuse to participate. Maybe just like think, no way, this is for babies. If you find yourself in that situation, I have some good news for you. We have trained thousands of middle school and high school educators at Yoga for Classrooms, and some of our middle school and high school educators have had the most success implementing Yoga for Classrooms. So, if you feel like mindfulness is only an elementary activity, that is not true. So, let's talk it through and talk about how we can make this applicable and developmentally appropriate, even for our middle school and high schoolers. So, first of all, I want to make something really clear. Students are never too old to learn how to regulate their emotions, manage stress, and take care of their mental well being. Let's be honest, humans are never too old for that. If you, as an educator, have been doing this a minute and have never utilized mindfulness as a tool yourself, you're not too old either, okay? It is never too late. In fact, what we find is sometimes our older students need these skills just as much, if not more, than our younger students, and yet we're more likely to leave it out of our schools for our older students. We think, oh, that's something they get in elementary school, but they may not have gotten it, or they may have gotten it, but need more, consistent implementation of it. So let's talk again about how we can make sure that we implement this in a developmentally appropriate way that can really truly be adapted for every grade level, no matter you're working with the little bitties in preschool all the way through high school. The main goal isn't to make the main goal is to make sure we don't make students feel like it's childish, right? We do want to make sure it's developmentally appropriate. So one really quick tip right away we can do is when we're doing the activity, you may not show the image. Like if I'm doing this with younger kids, I might really show the card so they can see the images. I might show them the back so they can see that. One quick, simple tip with our older students is just read the card. Don't emphasize the image quite so much. That's just like a really brief, easy way to make it not seem childish. The other thing that's really simple that we can do is we need to emphasize the why behind the practicality of these tools. So we want to do this with every age, really, but especially with our older students, we want them to understand some of the brain science behind this and some of, the real why it works and when they can use it so that they can start connecting it to their everyday life. So, when we really connect this to the things students are juggling every day, their tests and their homework, sports, maybe some of them have jobs, friendship, social media, college applications, thinking about what they are going to do beyond high school. Life can feel really overwhelming for many of our high school students. So, like we said, that's why these mindfulness skills can sometimes be the most important with this age group. So, when we teach students how to use mindfulness to pause, to take an intentional deep breath, to recognize what they're feeling, paying attention to how they're feeling, and then help reset, they'll see that it's not childish. It's truly a life skill that they can take with them forever, forever. These are truly regulation strategies that even adults use. So let's talk about some tangible tips. I already mentioned the basic, just don't show the picture. Other ways to make it age appropriate is to make sure that we are emphasizing the why. Okay, so those are two tips. Don't show the image, just make it more scripted. And then, second, understanding the why behind it, how that calms their nervous system. Talk about the brain science behind it. And when they understand the why, they're so much more likely to engage in the how. And then the third tip I have to make it age appropriate is let the older students lead the mindful moment. Again, at Yoga for Classrooms, they're all scripted, so they don't have to, memorize anything. There's no real, special sauce to reading the script. So let your older students lead the mindful moment. So what I did when I worked with older students is I would let them pick the mindful moment we would do as we got started. And we did a rotation of anyone who wanted to lead it was able to. So it was students reading Cat as a seated activity that we did. And they were able to, read the script, really walk the students through it. And that really helped increase buy-in. And then they're learning from their peers. And what do we know about that? Both the peer that's teaching and the peer that's learning learn better when they're learning from each other. So that is your third tip on how to make it developmentally appropriate. So make sure what you're showing the students is developmentally appropriate. Make sure that you're really making sure that they understand the why, and then utilize students to really lead the mindful moments with their peers. And those are three quick, easy ways to make this more developmentally appropriate for your older students. So if you've been thinking my students are too old for this, I really encourage you to shift that thinking. Your students are not too old. They need to see that we need this tool as well. We know our young people are facing bigger challenges and carrying greater responsibilities than ever before. So, giving them these practical regulation strategies is so important. Really, like I said, more important for maybe this age group than any other. So, using these mindful moments to help develop skills that they're going to use, yes, right now in school, but at home, in college, throughout their lives. I can't tell you how many students I've had come back and say, Miss Kirk, I used that when I had my first big college exam. I did that mindful moment, or I took, a moment to do a breathing exercise, and it just fills my heart with joy because sometimes we're just planting the seeds when they're with us and they're going to utilize it later on. And that is what is so important about our work as educators. We may not always see the fruits of our labor, but we know that we need them to have these skills. Unfortunately, we don't outgrow stress. We don't outgrow, hardships. And so having these skills are really important. Thank you so much for everything you do to support your students. If you need any more ideas of how you could implement this in the secondary setting, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always happy to help. And with that, we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye.